Okay, so in week two, there's basically two aspects to week two. One is the step one is identifying our core values, and then step two is defining those core values. And I should say identifying and defining the core values is step one, and step two is the identification of the spiritual gifts, which are kind of distinct from one another. One is, like I said, grounded in your core values. And so we're kind of starting here. There's a big list. This list that she's got here on the screen, this is just a suggested list, but it's a pretty good list, and it gives you a lot of ways into this. You can use words that might not be on this list that you really feel drawn to as part of your core values. But this is a really good list to kind of get you moving and thinking along there. But you're not stuck to just this list. If it inspires some other thing that really works for you, that you feel strongly about, you can certainly put that down there. But the goal of this is it's kind of two phases of it. I want you to go through that list first and circle up to 10 of these words on here, this personal core values checklist, things that you feel drawn to, you feel resonant with. And then you're going to refine that down into 5. And at that point in time, as you're doing that, you're really going to be kind of making some value decisions. Yeah, I might really enjoy, for example, my privacy. That might be on my top 10 list, but it's not as important to me as imagination, for example. So you're making some kind of triage decisions, bringing that list of 10 down to a group of 5. And in doing that, you're really placing, you're sort of making a qualitative value decision about those. So you really want to kind of get to the top 5 core values that you feel really strong about, and collecting that list. So once again, this is a process, and each one of these things begins to build on one another. So in the next phase of this same process, which is on page 8 of your booklet, step 2 is defining your core values. And so after you've written down the 3 to 5 core values, this worksheet down here at the bottom, we're going to have you choose 3 of those 5 to do this portion of the exercise. And the page there is kind of self-explanatory in terms of taking you through it, but let's just cover it real quickly. So the first one is to determine meaning, and then there's one of the rationale for that. So in the meaning, it's like, what does imagination, for example, if I'm using imagination from the previous page, what does imagination mean to me? How would I define imagination? And then I'm going to do this for each of the 3 core values. So the rationale is, why is this value of imagination important to me? Why, kind of come up with a rationale for that. And we're going to do that also for the other 3 core values. And then we're going to define some action steps. So there's some guiding questions there. But if you look at the example there, the one that she's got grayed out there at the top of the list there, where she chose the core value as being spirit-led. That's something that's important to me, that I'm following the lead of spirit. So I've identified that as a core value. And then I'm going to determine a meaning, a definition of that. So I turn within the spirit for guidance and active communication. So that's an articulation, an affirmation, if you will. Why is this important to me? Well, I create order, peace, and harmony in myself and others when I align my daily actions with spirit's guidance. Once again, this is a great affirmation that underscores this idea of identifying with our beingness first, right? I'm creating order, peace, and harmony in myself when I align my daily actions with spirit's guidance. So I'm really identifying with that beingness. And then the tangible action steps or behaviors that I can take. I have a daily spiritual practice that keeps me conscious of spirit at work in my life. I complete classes and workshops that support my spiritual growth. So we're taking our core value, defining it, what its meaning is, why it's important to me, and then I'm articulating some action steps that I can take in the world that embody that core value. So that's sort of phase 1 of this 2-step process in week 2. I'll just kind of go over this last page right here, the spiritual gifts inventory, setting this thing up here, is that remember that many of us have well-developed skills and we use them frequently. So you're probably already, and many of us are probably already using a lot of our spiritual gifts already. Once again, this process is to bring this up to a conscious level. Some of these spiritual gifts that we're using frequently may not be our spirit given gifts. For example, I might be highly skilled with computers and work with them frequently, but not feel energized and fulfilled while I'm using these skills. Like, you can be really, really good at something and it still not be, setting your soul on fire, so to speak. So when we use our spiritual gifts, when we use those kinds of gifts, we may feel tired. We may also have a sense of satisfaction and contentment, whereas with other skills, we often just feel tired, right? So there's a good way to determine energetically, if the skill that I'm using is leaving me feeling depleted, it might not necessarily be one of our spiritual gifts. So it might be something you do really, really well, but we want it to fill you up in your spirit as well. So as we review the themes and the patterns emerging from the workshop, we want to keep the importance of energy and fulfillment in mind. It's a good indicator of a possible spiritual gift. Even if you don't use a gift frequently or well, the fact that they infuse you with energy is noteworthy. So we're really learning to pay attention and hone in on how we're responding to that. So we're going to use the spiritual gifts activity sheet, which is on the next page. If you want to flip the page there, Tammy. So what we're going to do here is there's kind of 2 pages. Can you give me a flash of page 11 real quick, just so they can see that real quick? This is the same thing also. This is some suggestions, spiritual gifts. This is to kind of prime the pump, get you thinking along those lines, but you feel free to use something that's not on this list, but this will get you kind of going. So the idea here is to identify spiritual gifts that you feel drawn to or that resonate with you, put it there on the list. And you're going to be doing some investigations here with other people in your life, people that you trust. For example, I have 3 mastermind partners that I might resort to ask them to help me with this list and give me feedback. But anybody that you trust, trusted advisor and so forth, somebody close to you, to say, hey, I think I have this spiritual gift. What do you think? So we're looking for them to see which spiritual gifts we've identified that others are affirming. Yeah, Bob, I see that in you. You're a really, really good teacher, Bob. I really see that in you. So get some affirmation from somebody, from others. And also, as a secondary corollary to that, asking them to identify any additional gifts that they may see in you that you don't necessarily see in yourself or hadn't really thought about. So it's kind of a twofold investigation there with them. One, do you see this gift in me? Yes or no? Okay. And after we've completed that list, are there any other spiritual gifts that you see in me that I might not have articulated for myself? So it gives us that vital feedback to help us hone in on what we see our spiritual gifts to be. So that's kind of week 2. So once again, we're phase 1 of week 2, we're defining core values, kind of bringing those up into a conscious level. And then phase 2 of week 2 is where we're honing in on our spiritual gifts. So values and gifts is the purpose of that. And that all of that feeds into this idea of beingness. We're getting real look at it as a as within, so without kind of thing. So this identification of spiritual gifts and core values is that internal work.